the previous video, I mentioned that there are many definitions of a business model, and when discussing about business models with someone, you should really clarify whether this person thinks about the same definition. In Odyssey 314, we define the business model around our three pillars: the value proposition, the value architecture, and the profit equation. There is another framework to describe a business model that has become very popular over the past years. It is called the Business Model Canvas and comes from this best-selling book, Business Model Generation, by Alexander Osterwalder, a Swiss business theorist and consultant. In this book, Osterwalder uses 9 components for his business model framework. If we take a closer look at them, these components are very similar to the 3 pillars used in Odyssey 314. Customer segments, customer relationships, and the value proposition are very close to what we call the value proposition in our 3 pillars. Key partners, key activities, key resources, and channels refer to the value architecture in our previous definition. Finally, we can also find the revenue stream and the cost structure. So as you can see, both our framework and Osterwalder's framework are very close and consistent with one another. Over the years, many of our students or managers that we've talked to in company have been using both, and they have helped us identify 2 major differences. First, with our 3 pillars, our framework is easier to understand since it gives a better first overview of the business model. You can then dig into the detailed components: customer, product and price on the value proposition side, value chain, resources and competencies on the value architecture side, revenue, costs and capital employed on the profit equation, in order to detail your description. Thus, very often, users of both frameworks tell us that they are perfectly compatible. But it is easier to first describe the 3 pillars and then dig into the details. Indeed, one tricky and exciting thing about building a new business model is that to succeed, all the pieces have to work in harmony. So often at the beginning, you're testing how those different pieces work together. In this regard, our Odyssey 314 framework with its 3 pillars is actually very close to the 3 lenses of innovation created by IDEO, a US design company very well known for popularizing the design thinking approach. The 3 lenses of innovation are summarized by the following figure. Desirability focuses on the following questions. What's the unique value proposition? Do people want this product or service? Does it make sense for them? As far as feasibility is concerned, the questions are: does this work? Is it functionally possible in a foreseeable future? And finally, viability questions whether we can build a sustainable business. What are the costs? What will customers pay for it? Many users of this approach recognize that it is easier to first play around with the 3 pieces and to figure out how they work together rather than 9. And our 3 pillars, value proposition, value architecture, and profit equation, are very similar to the 3 designed by IDEO. So this was about the first difference. The second difference between our framework and the business model canvas lies in the profit equation. As you have probably noticed, the business model canvas only focuses on revenues and costs and doesn't take into account capital employed. Remember that capital employed are the assets that you need to run your company, such as machines, trucks, and so on, as well as working capital. The business model canvas has initially been designed to create new ventures, in which you mainly focus on the break-even, that is, the difference between your revenues and your costs. However, we strongly believe that thinking about the capital employed structure early on should be part of your strategic thinking. For example, outsourcing production means that you don't own the asset, the factory, for example, but this will probably have an impact on your cost structure. Thus, we believe that it is important to think about your capital employed structure very early on in your business model invention or reinvention effort. So there are mainly two differences between our Odyssey 314 business model framework and the business model canvas, to sum it up. The number of components, 3 versus 9, that makes it easier to figure out a holistic view of your innovation, and the fact that we take into account capital employed and not only costs. In any case, as you will discover all along this course, the business model framework is a valuable tool in thinking strategically about innovation.